The day my face appeared on the television, I was sitting on the floor of a borrowed room, eating lentils from a chipped bowl and listening to the rain argue with the tin roof. The announcer spoke my name with careful seriousness, the way people speak when they don't want to be blamed later. A photograph followed, my photograph, taken years earlier at a wedding where I had smiled as if nothing could ever loosen me from the world. The caption said missing. The screen showed a number to call if anyone had seen me. I turned the volume down and finished my meal. I had not planned to disappear. I had planned to be ordinary. I had planned to keep my job, keep my promises, keep the delicate balance that people mistake for a life. But plans are made of paper, and sometimes the smallest fire takes them all. When my mother died, the house seemed to tilt. After the funeral, relatives drifted away with their condolences folded neatly, and the rooms filled with a noise that was not sound. Bills came like insects, landing on every surface. I told myself I could fix it. I told myself tomorrow would be better. Tomorrow did not listen. The night I left, I put my keys back on the hook. I washed the cup I had used. I folded my clothes with the carefulness of a guest. I took nothing sentimental. I did not want memory tugging at me like a leash. Outside, the streetlight flickered as if unsure whether to stay awake. I walked until the pavement turned to dirt and the dirt turned to road. When dawn arrived, it found me anonymous. I learned quickly how much of a person is stitched to their name. Without it, doors become uncertain things. I learned which buses didn't ask too many questions, which tea stalls let you sit without buying, which days the soup kitchen served rice thick enough to be called a meal. Kindness arrived not as a grand gesture but as a series of small permissions. A driver let me ride one stop farther than my coin allowed. A woman with tired eyes shared her umbrella without speaking. An old man showed me how to sleep near the river where the ground was warmer. The borrowed room came later. A shopkeeper named Iqbal noticed I kept sweeping his front step long after my tea was finished. He asked me where I was from, and I told him the truth in pieces. Nowhere, I said, and then, after a pause, everywhere. He laughed and said his cousin had a room behind the tailor's shop. It smelled of cloth and starch and old rain. I paid in installments, sometimes in work. I sewed buttons. I ran errands. I learned to keep my voice low and my eyes open. On the television that evening, my sister's face appeared beside mine. She had lost weight. Her hair was tied back the way she did when she was tired of being careful. She spoke about me as if I were already a story with an ending she could not read. I turned the volume down again. I did not want to hear my life retold without my permission. I told myself I had vanished to protect them. That my absence was a mercy, a clean cut rather than a slow bleed. It was easier to think this way. But kindness has a way of asking questions you would rather avoid. It asks them gently, with a cup of tea placed where your hands can reach. The tailor's shop was run by a woman named Salma, who stitched with the focus of a surgeon. She watched me for a week before she spoke more than necessary. Then one afternoon, when the rain had trapped us in the shop and the iron hissed like a small animal, she asked, "Who misses you?" The question startled me because it was not accusatory. It was curious, as if she were asking about the weather. The weather. "I don't know," I said. She nodded, as if this were an answer she had expected. "People think missing is about being lost," she said. "Sometimes it's about being found in the wrong place." She began to teach me to sew. My stitches were clumsy at first, my fingers all thumbs. She corrected me without touching, her voice calm. Again, she would say, and I would try again. It was a kindness I had forgotten existed, the kind that believes you can improve without shaming you for where you start. Weeks folded into months. I saved money in a tin under the bed. I learned the city's rhythms. I learned how to be useful without being visible. When winter came, the river mist curled like breath around the bridge. One night, a boy no older than 12 knocked on the shop door after closing. His jacket was too thin, his eyes too old. He asked if there was work. Salma gave him a sandwich and a needle and told him to watch me. "We learn by looking," she said. He watched with a seriousness that made my chest ache. That night, I dreamed of my mother's hands. She had taught me how to mend socks when I was small, how to turn something worn into something that could last another season. In the dream, she did not speak. She simply watched me sew, and when I finished, she nodded once. The next morning, the television in the tea stall showed my face again. This time the headline said "Search expands." A man at the next table said people should be careful, that you never know who is sitting beside you. I stirred my tea until the sugar disappeared. I began to notice how kindness travels. The boy returned with his friend. Salma taught them both. The shopkeeper Iqbal, again, she would say, and I would try again. It was a kindness I had forgotten existed, the kind that believes you can improve without shaming you for where you start. Weeks folded into months. I saved money in a tin under the bed. I learned the city's rhythms. I learned how to be useful without being visible. When winter came, the river mist curled like breath around the bridge. One night, a boy no older than 12 knocked on the shop door after closing. His jacket door. A woman from the next street brought her mending and paid extra, saying she liked the way we listened. I watched my hands become something reliable. I watched my days acquire shape. One afternoon, Salma cut her finger. It was small, but it bled. She laughed it off, but I saw the way she winced. I cleaned the cut, wrapped it carefully. She watched me, surprised. "You are good at this," she said, not meaning the bandage. "You notice." I had practice, I said, and for once I did not stop myself from adding, "my mother." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "If you ever want to stop being nowhere, you could stay here." The offer was simple. It was also enormous. To stay meant to be seen. To be seen meant to be missed again. That night, I could not sleep. The tin roof rattled. The river murmured. I thought of my sister's tired hair, my father's hands shaking as he poured tea. I thought of the boy's serious eyes. I thought of my mother's nod. In the morning, I went to the tea stall early and watched the man set out the cups. When the television flickered on, I did not turn it down. The announcer spoke my name again, and this time I listened all the way through. When the number appeared, I wrote it on a scrap of paper with a pencil borrowed from the counter. My hand shook. I did not call right away. Kindness, I had learned, is not always about speed. It is about timing. That afternoon, a woman came into the shop carrying a dress that had belonged to her daughter. The fabric was thin from washing, the hem frayed. "She's getting married," the woman said, her voice proud and afraid at once. "Can you make it new?" Salma smiled. "We can make it last," she said. We worked together, careful and quiet. When the dress was finished, the woman touched it as if it might breathe. She pressed money into Salma's hand and tried to give me some too. I shook my head. "It's enough," I said, surprised to find it was true. That evening, I called the. We worked together, careful and quiet. When the dress was finished, the woman touched it as if it might breathe. She pressed money into Salma's hand and tried to give me some too. I shook my head. "It's enough," I said, surprised to find it was true. That evening, I called the number. My sister answered on the third ring. She said my name as if she were testing whether it still fit in her mouth. I told her where I was without giving directions. I told her I was alive. I told her I was sorry. I did not tell her everything. I told her enough. They came 2 days later. My father looked smaller than I remembered, his hair more silver than salt. He held himself as if he might break if he leaned too far in any direction. My sisters stood beside him, steady. They did not run. They did not shout. They waited. Salma brought tea. Iqbal hovered by the door. The boy and his friend watched from the street. Kindness gathered in the room like light. I didn't know how to come back, I said, because it was the truest sentence I owned. My father nodded. We didn't know how to look, he said. We sat. We breathed. We drank tea. The world did not end. When the television later announced that the missing person had been found, it did not say where I had been. It did not say who had fed me, who had taught me, who had believed I could be more than my worst moment. It did not say that missing is sometimes a place you pass through, not a place you live. I did not leave the shop. I did not go back to the house with the flickering streetlight, at least not right away. I stayed and stitched and learned how to be present without disappearing. On weekends, my father visited. My sister brought sweets. The boy learned to thread a needle without looking. Sometimes, when the rain argued with the tin roof, I remembered the night I watched my face on television and turned the volume down. I thought about how easy it is to become a headline, how hard it is to become a person again. Then Salma would hand me a piece of cloth and say, again, and I would begin, careful and kind, one stitch at a time.